or so, and it's seen as like the democracy school. It's
What does
a
that mean, democracy
school with
school?
rules which are only voted on by the students. So the students run the school effectively, although the teachers, who are a lot less, I think about 13, they also have a vote, but their vote is the same as the 5-year-olds
The prisoners
there as
take
well,
over the prison.
pretty much. And it's not as much chaos as you think.
I would say this is like the end. You're like, this is like
It's the beginning.
it's the beginning,
I
not the
think,
end. Oh my god.
yeah.
To me, this is literally probably a horrible scenario. I don't know. This is like the stuff of
It works.
nightmares.
It's worked for
That
100 years.
it has worked for
Uh,
100 years.
yep, and it hasn't fallen apart, and it's not got graffiti everywhere.
Okay, so like Gotham City School Edition.
No, it's lovely.
It's lovely.
It's
Like a
really nice
utopia.
old building. In a way, although I was like the teachers seem to sort of be quite cool people, but then the students I was looking at, and I was because I think the mark of a good school is its students,
Yeah, of course.
and the students were almost like I was either expecting maybe like really fully vibrant, alive students, or the opposite, like as if
Tasks.
what happens to chaos, like when
Yeah.
it just yeah, when there's chaos, like people just go wild and just yeah, not in a good place. But the kids are almost more normal than perhaps I was expecting.
Wait,
Um,
wait. Before we go more into that, is that a school that anyone can go? Like, is that a school that?
you do have to pay for it.
Okay, okay. There is a caveat there. Okay. Do you think
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a self selection? You know, there like the type of students that can afford to go are the sort of students that are also more suited to go. Does that make sense a little bit? Like,
I guess I see what you're saying, but I don't think so. Like, well, I was touring around yesterday with these parents who they have a child who's not been in school for 3 years. He has pathological demand avoidance. Um, yeah, that condition. Um,
do you know what that is? What is that? Just for
yeah,
anyone who's not
PDA is, but yeah,
doesn't know.
when it seems to be talked about a lot more these days, but
I've
it's
never heard
a
of it. That's why I
condition.
was asking because you
Yeah,
know.
no, maybe being in teaching, I'm hearing about it more, but it's, yeah, when, I'm probably not the best person to explain it, but it's how it's seen in the classroom might be like a kid just does not do what you say, and when you say something, they'd like do that, they'll actively try and do the opposite as a form of control.
Oh, is that something like um? I have heard something like ADD. Is that the same?
Well, ADD is just, without ADHD without the hyperactivity component, I believe.
Because I heard something like that that it was.
Attention deficit disorder. But all
Yeah.
these things can be quite, overlapped and linked, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And
But
okay, that's interesting because I was afraid that it would be a school that there was no problem children as such. You know, they like.
no, this is where the problem children go, like,
Oh, okay, that's
because
the same.
they and I was impressed by
Mm,
the leadership's, confidence in their approach to problem children, not to necessarily treat them as like ADHD, "That's an
mm,
ADHD child, we need to treat them differently," although sometimes that's the case. But it's actually freedom cures that. Like,
yeah.
imagine pathological demand avoidance.
Mm,
If you're demand avoiding all the time as a form of control,
mm,
go to a school where there is no one demanding stuff of you, and
mm,
therefore that part of you just fades away and, you just get over it.
mm.
I
So,
I think that that may well happen, and I think that's Miss Summerhill School does do that first step, that beginning, very well. But I also notice in the students, they and I wasn't there for that long,
mm,
but I feel that, even though they had complete freedom in some ways, or it wasn't complete freedom because they vote on the laws, um, as a community, so they live as a community, and that brings its own set of skills, but there was not necessarily at least as far as I saw, the light
Mm.
there, which I have seen from some students of alternative schools, but as in, yeah, it's just someone who's just incredibly curious about the world, very, like, up not necessarily always upbeat, but they're sort of very excited. It's almost like life is a celebration,
Okay.
um, and I think that's, although not always the right approach, I think that should be something that we cultivate as educators, and I didn't necessarily see that at Summerhill. It seemed like a good first step, like freedom is perhaps a good first step to cure past problems, but education is not just to cure the ills that society or past schools or parents have put on kids. It's also to cultivate them towards something, although there's danger obviously in that. Um, and that was making me rethink my own life is like, is it is this pursuit of freedom that I have just not enough on its own?
Mm.
Like the last few years, I've been trying to drop everything in terms of any rule I made for myself or rule someone else has made for myself. I try to drop it, and I think that's helped, but I don't think it's everything.
Mm. Rules and
Like
labels.
Aristotle.
No, oh no. Before you go, I was just wanted to intercept because rules and labels, I think can often do a lot of damage, especially for children. Because I've had some experience with working in mental health in the past myself, and you see people often becoming institutionalized based on the label they receive of their diagnosis.
Mm,
So people are told, you're ADHD or you're, um, I don't know, a borderline personality or something along those lines. And as soon as they get that label, then they kind of carry that label like a cross on them. I don't know. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
Maybe let's go
yeah, it can
biblical.
either weigh you down or
Yeah,
empower you in the wrong way potentially
and anymore,
to demand people things of people,
and yeah, and in many
rather
cases,
rather than just treating everyone as equal.
exactly, and in many cases, it looked like these people were instead of um improving in a lot of ways, they would become more and more that label. They
Yeah,
they
and I think
would.
everyone has their own limitations and advantages. Like the problem, for a problem with labels is they can often become like a victim mentality, and you
Mm,
can sort of just see that as a bad thing, and rather than thinking like all the good stuff it brings. Not always, maybe, but even something with like my disability, like if you just thought that as a disability, like a lack of ability,
mm,
then that might have shut me down to thinking about all the positives, which has undoubtedly brought me. And therefore, ADHD, I was watching a video the other day, that can bring lots of different positives. And I think those positives should be encouraged and cultivated by teachers and parents.
mhm.
Uh, and autism as well, that can come with positives as well as negatives, like a great curiosity for the world and
Yeah,
pursuit
attention to
of that.
detail and
Yeah, attention to detail and, um, so there are benefits, and so if you just put a label on people, then that's not so good. But it is not to say that it can't ever be useful, but interestingly, that Summerhill's approach sort of, in a way, works for all. It's a cure-all, um, because freedom, in a way, cures all to some extent, I would say. And interestingly, also one of the management said to me that a few years ago there was some awkward teenage girls in the school who were very into this sort of like LGBT sort of narrative,
mm,
and yeah, the principal was like, "Oh, let's just like get over it. Like we treat everyone equal anyway."
okay.
And I think that's interesting that the labels with ADHD and autism or whatever, like skyrocketing,
Mm.
sort of coincided with the labels of all these different genders skyrocketing.
Mm.
And interestingly, this left wing liberal school, where freedom is the hallmark, um, the person, well, I don't want to say who it is, but in case I get them into trouble with a left wing mob, but one of the people in the management of that school is also critical of um, this overemphasis on gender labels,
Mm.
um, because yeah, we treat everyone equal. Not an equal. We can treat everyone equal but different, but in a way, yeah, like if someone needs a bit of help with something because of a limitation they have, then yeah, we generally give it to them as long as it's not a major imposition on everyone else. But yeah, I think that's quite a healthy
Mm.
sort of approach to things.
You mentioned earlier that they live like a community. Is it like a school where um the kids stay on the grounds as well? Is that like
Yeah, although the boarding is less so in the primary school,
okay.
increasingly less so, and more in the secondary school, and they found it makes a big difference with people
Really?
now. There's less primary boarders. They find the effects of the positive effects are reduced.
Okay. And
Maybe a fact of if you're going home every day, you're not fully part of that community. You don't have to accept the positives and the downsides of living in a community and the responsibility that comes with that. And maybe also you're going back to your parents and home life, and so you haven't severed that link, which then allows for healing to happen. If like if you might find it, I've kind of found it when I've gone traveling for a long time, um, and there you sort of have to build your life away from any of your past life and see what that's like. And that freedom in a way is healing because it allows you to drop some limiting beliefs. So like we might do that every day, but then we go and see someone in our family or friend group, and then we start acting how they expect us to act, and therefore
mm,
we don't really change.
oh, don't worry. I felt that firsthand. I am someone who lives in a different country than my family, and I
Yeah.
go back and I regress to a version of me that is like a teenager because
Yeah, it's
that's
interesting. It
the
shows it
last
doesn't
time.
really there doesn't no time limit on it. It just
No, there's
goes
no
back.
timing or age. I actively feel it that I regress to a version of me that they know from like my teenage years, as soon as I'm with family. And
Mm,
it's quite jarring, I would say, for anyone who's like living away from their family, like as much as like as far as I am for my family.
mm,
They certainly feel that. I think you certainly feel that you're like you go back and you're treated like a teenager, effectively, as if I'm still a teenager, and I regress to a
right.
teenager. I feel myself.
Yeah, it's difficult to get out of that, potentially.
But then that
Uh,
yeah, go on.
yeah, no, you go. Mm.
No, I was gonna say that it's um but at the same time it's not the same as being a teenager and being completely away from your family, because I'm not sure how does it work in a school like this where the students stay in the school. How is it? Do they only stay in for the days of the week? Do they go back in the weekend? Do they stay there for the whole term time? How does it work?
I mean, a lot of them stay there for a whole term time. There are some who
Really?
go home at weekends. Yeah, because they've got maybe 30% foreign students, so they come from abroad.
Wow, that's a long
But
time for what?
yeah,
What age
apparently there's
does
some
this?
homesickness for a few days, but then they get completely over it. Everyone pretty much gets over it because of the community is very welcoming, supportive, and freedom is a cure for homesickness.
And from what age
So,
does this start? This kind of full onboarding for the whole term time. Like, from what age?
well, it's more secondary school, so I guess
Secondary
like
school.
11, but it would have been more some primary school students in the past, but it's less so now.
I don't know. How would you feel then as a parent sending your child away for this long? Like none of us,
Well,
neither me or you, are parents.
she talked like, the headmistress, I don't think that's what she called, maybe the principal. She actually was talking to these potential parents who I was touring around with,
Mm.
And she put it quite well as like they were saying, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about letting my son go for these long periods, and
Yeah, like
he's not gonna be he's not gonna be young for that long.
that's what I
So
mean.
I'm not gonna be able to spend that much quality time with him." She actually framed it really well in terms of
Hit me.
like you got long holidays, so you can spend way more time with them then, and there will be yeah, and then in the like most people they have their child come home from school, or they say that let's start with the start of the day. They spend the time with them first hour of the day, generally a rush trying to get them ready for school, forcing them rather than having a true relationship with them. And then you get home and then you maybe spend a few hours with your children trying to get them to do homework or whatever, and they're stressed out. They've had a very hard day at school because we generally push them quite hard. And then so you're tired, they're tired. We're at Summerhill, they're able to live freely, and in the summer holidays, they are able to just be healthy, and energetic kids, without any pressure on them, and so you get a lot more time with them in the holidays.
I get what you're saying, and I can understand it in a way, but like ideal, I'll preface this, ideal for parents who don't want to be with their children all the time as well. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. There's a lot of
Yeah,
parents,
especially if
they
it's
won't
an awkward
admit
kid.
it, but they don't want to be with their children all the time.
Yeah.
Ideal, but um I don't know, I have a dog now, and I wouldn't want to go months without seeing my dog. I can't imagine this magnified by 100 if I had a kid, you know?
Mm.
Like, I don't know. It's just a bit extreme, you know? And like put that to the side. Okay, holidays matter most. Fine, we're all happy and we're all going to be happy. But there is something about obviously you don't have just the holidays if you describe, you know, a school day, you know. You have the weekends normally with your children where you can do, you know, father son activities and stuff like that. And I went with, you know, my father and uncle for fishing and stuff in the weekend. You know, that was quite a good bonding activity and whatnot. And um I don't know, like I just feel like you're probably missing so much time um with your parents if you are in this sort of environment, which as you say, maybe it's a good thing because you're not going to pick up the negatives of your parents if you're in a not very nice environment as well. I don't
Well,
know,
yeah,
but
you're able to build up your own personality.
yes, exactly, without the
You got
fear.
enough time and freedom to find out who you are in some sense.
Yeah, I'm just really torn, you know. I'm just, don't get me wrong, like I also found that, to be honest, due to personal circumstances, I only had um quality time with my father during holiday times. So like that tracks, you know, that you know, if you're not at school, when you're at school, it's all a blur, you know. It's just the weekday, you come home, you're tired, your parents are tired, you just have dinner, you go to bed and the day starts again. But you know, in the weekends you're doing stuff. But I don't know, it just feels like, I don't know, if I was a parent, I would also feel like, I don't know, I'm letting other people raise my children, which I think is like, no, a little bit
Mm.
like,
But in a way, they're not raising the children because they refuse to, dictate how children should act.
yeah,
So
I'm
it
not saying it with the literal sense, but you know, my children being raised away from me almost. Let's put it
yeah.
that way. I don't know how to
But
feel
with the
about that.
long holidays, it's about 6 months, I believe, off almost. So
Okay, okay, interesting. Okay.
that's a lot of time to spend, and probably a lot more time than a lot of people spend with their kids, at least
Yeah.
quality time.
Okay. Then um I have questions still. I have questions
Yeah,
about this
go
school
on.
and about this sort of situation. From what you've described, this school, Summerhill, has a mixture of students, as you say, where like some of them might have, um, as you described, ADHD or you know learning difficulties, I suppose, and other kind of. I don't want to use the word. I don't know. Special needs. Is that the word used, or am I
No,
getting cancelled?
well, especially most, I don't know, like,
Special needs, but in the way of like the school needing to kind of put special things in place for them. How do they manage this if there's such a blend of like different students and stuff like that, combining that with the fact that there is no rules as such and the students do what they want and so on? How does that kind of work in practice?
well, I don't know, firstly, how much special needs students come, as in, yeah, like in terms of, yeah, like ADHD.
Like
What is an
autism, yeah.
what's a naughty kid versus an ADHD kid? Um, and yeah, like a lot of these kids do probably got no labels. I mean, even the ones with labels, it's like, yeah, do we actually need to do anything different for them, or is it really that the mainstream school sector just doesn't work for people, for instance, with ADHD,
Mm.
and this actually works for people with ADHD without having to do anything else? Potentially. But if there's a way that this individual student works better, then the teacher will work one-to-one with them to work out how does this student learn? Otherwise, that student just won't come to class, which is perfectly fine. They're not forced to come to the class. So the teachers have to make it attractive to come to class.
And what happens when they don't go to class then in the school?
They play.
Play with who? Isn't everyone else at school?
Well, they can either play on their own, but there'll probably also be other people who don't turn up to classes that day as well.
Oh yeah, well, okay, fair. There might be other people as well. So what if I would have been one of the kids that never went to class? I'm sorry. Like I wouldn't have gone to class. I most
Well,
likely
maybe, but maybe you just got that perception of learning as something which is a negative rather than a positive in its own right.
no, you
And
don't understand. No, if I would be asleep, I'd just be asleep. Like if there was no reason for me to get up, I would just be asleep. Like I never wanted to wake up early to go to school. Like I was hating being made to wake up. And if I had the option of like, okay, I'm gonna stay in bed, I'll be staying in bed. Like I would have slept
mm,
my school years if I was in that school. And waking up at like lunchtime
yeah,
and doing nothing but playing after.
I
So
can kind of see why that a lot of people would probably think that was happened to them, but I didn't get that impression
okay.
that that's what happens to kids there, which is interesting.
So I mean,
Maybe
how
that
do they do it?
maybe you're feeling so tired because of the lifestyle.
Maybe. Maybe as you say, maybe the grind was killing me. The constant
Like
school grind.
freedom, yeah, like freedom, the lack of the grind, as you put it, um, maybe is enough to just to not have you doing that all the time. Like, sure, you might occasionally wanna sleep in, especially if you've had a late night, but, a healthy person wants to jump out of bed in the morning because they got something to look forward to, and they're not completely whacked and drained from the day before.
Hmm. Okay, and does the school does all the subject like normal, like all the other schools do? Are all
Pretty
the normal
normal.
subjects taught as well? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
although it's a bit more kid-led, and there's probably a bit more, like, woodwork and art and stuff, because kids naturally wanna do those ones more.
What about sports and like and like yeah, like PE and stuff?
Well, they're playing all the time, so why do they need PE?
Like for more organized sports, like organizing football or organizing basketball and stuff like that.
Well, they
No.
do have they have had a football team at times and, like, especially when we've had a lot of German kids, they like to organise a football team, but I get the idea, it comes more from the kids, so if the kids wanna do football, they do football, or if, like, yesterday, one of the teachers was like, "Oh," and a few kids was like, should we go along to a tennis court and just play some pickleball? Um, so it's a very like informal. It's not like you're drilling. Like even PE lessons, which are supposed to be fun in school, they tend to be more like
They're very
um,
structured usually, yes.
structured, and I think it's almost unnecessary. Like I run paddle tennis coaching for kids, and I'll give them a tip now and then, but generally, just playing the game itself or playing fun games using your racket, that teaches you a lot, and it's effortless for me almost, and it's more fun, so they want to carry on.
No, I understand that. And
And
I
you don't
do
you
believe
don't need
that
to make sports stars.
and I do believe that schools are extremely authoritarian for no reason these days. Like
They're very rigid.
they're very rigid, very authoritarian, very strict for no reason. Like you don't expect adults to be as conforming and as, you know, in line as schools expect their children to be these days. It's just insane to me because I have friends who have like kids and stuff,
Mm.
teenagers at school, and it's like, what? Like it's just crazy. And it's like I do think it's like gone too far on that side, to be honest, on the strictness side.
Yeah, but then I do wonder if Summerhill's like too far the
But
other
then,
way.
yeah, but then from
Uh,
what you're describing, we are on the other end of the spectrum, where
but arguably in a world with AI and stuff doing a lot of the robotic tasks, then schools which encourage students to pursue their creativity and curiosity and the sense of adventure, they are the people who will not only contribute more to the world, but also thrive in the world and be happier.
yeah, you say that, or they're just gonna be a crop of people who don't have a strong will to do anything. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's maybe my takeaway from Summerhill is like, I think, yeah, sure, like given freedom, actually, it's surprising how many students will pursue their curiosity and actually end up taking GCSEs and passing because they know that they need to get the GCSEs to do whatever they want to do in future. I think that does often happen, but yeah, like looking at the students, I didn't necessarily see that like light behind the eyes of all of them.
That
Like no worse and probably better than a lot of mainstream kids, but I feel like education is not freedom is the first step,
mm,
and that heals us. But I think also there's something which I think is in the forward motion of life, which
mm,
education can play a role in. And that also makes me think in my own life is there's something missing, and that missing thing might be something along the lines of purpose, curiosity, adventure. Um, like those sort of things, although I hesitate to use the word purpose because I know I'm not sure it's always used correctly.
yeah, and that would be my kind of hesitation with this sort of not hesitation, my kind of doubt with this sort of system of schooling is that freedom is good. Freedom is like giving like young people kind of like a space where things don't move so fast. They are not so much pressure. There isn't so much, you know, strictness for things. It's a good place to give that freedom to kind of think about what you need, think about what you want to be, what you want to do, what you're interested in. Fine. But the problem is that to be good at something, you also need to be able to lock in. You know, it's like I'm interested in something,
Mm,
but in order to learn it well enough, to do it well enough, to be successful in it good enough, you need to lock in as well. Lock in means working very hard for a long time, focused on something. And I feel like a lot all that vast freedom is almost a counter environment to locking into something undistracted. You know what I mean?
maybe, yeah. I think you'd be surprised by the amount of people who do perhaps lock in, as you put it. But But yeah, perhaps I do generally agree. Um, I think, yeah, persistence at something is not necessarily what just freedom will give you. I think a lot of like maybe that was a mistake of a hippie movement is to think like freedom is the be or end all. And rather than thinking as like yeah, like freedom per se, Aristotle would put it freedom for something. Freedom for what? Not just freedom for freedom's sake or freedom to indulge yourself all the time. Not that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just more of an empty thing. It's I don't know. Like imagine like the Garden of Eden, sort of like Summerhill. Like perhaps a lot of people would think that Summerhill is going to be like everything chaos, but actually it's almost like a Garden of Eden scenario. But do humans want to be just back in the Garden of Eden? In a way, yeah. A lot of people would be like, that's paradise, right? But I also think there's something in living life which is important.
Mm,
Like, why are we here? And maybe no answer to that. Um, but and I think often people who find life worth living are the ones who've actually grasped it by the horns and grasped this opportunity. This maybe one life we ever get, and and done something with it. And just to be chilling and playing all day in like a Garden of Eden scenario is
mm,
not necessary, like growth, as it were. And obviously,
yeah.
growth can be negative, and it can be like this sort of like lone wolf, hustle culture sort of thing. But and that maybe makes people go the other way to hippie mode. But actually, I think there is something valuable in some sense of growth. Otherwise, like growing up itself is a movement of growth, and seems to be somewhat positive in and valuable,
And
and and you
that's
need
exactly,
persistence for that.
yeah, and that's what I mean. I had read somewhere, I think you need to put in 1,000 hours, I think, somewhere into something new to become proficient at it. Like whether it is like, I don't know, learning a new instrument or something. I
Mm.
feel like if you're in that environment, you're not putting these 1,000 hours of focus into learning that something new when there is all these freedom slash distractions that you can do all these different things all the time with your friends and all and playing and other stuff and other
Yeah,
activities and all sorts for you to be able to focus on something to do it well enough to be proficient at it. That would be my
like
kind of.
John Stuart Mill talked of lower pleasures and higher pleasures, and I wonder like how these sort of things compare. Like, I think play is itself like a flow activity and kind of fun and yeah, quite effortless to do. So there's play. Then there's playing an instrument well, like maybe you've learnt piano pretty well and you can sort of get into the flow with that. Is that in some way superior to just the play? Like Alan Watts talks about, there's no possibility of enjoyment in life without discipline, which he meant actually the discipline, the skill of learning something like learning how to sail. Um,
Mm,
and he equates it with like the rich millionaires buying boats and then realizing they can't sail and they just have parties on them. Um, so yeah, it is very different between those two things. And then is it even is there maybe a higher pleasure than both of them in terms of not just pursuing what might be called pastimes, but actually contributing to your circle of whatever that is, your circle of people, your community, your family.
mm. I don't know. I lean towards the fact that you surely must lean towards the fact that, you know, the feeling you get during sailing when you're locked in there, you know.
I'm not sure that's that much difference to play though, to be honest.
I would argue that it's better. I would argue that it's
Mm,
better because it comes from a place of like achieved mastery as well over what you're doing and self accomplishment, you know, like which
mm,
is and more enhanced version to just play. Like it becomes as good as play, I would think, at that level. Like you're so good, you've done so many hours of sailing now that it's as natural as playing to you when you do it, I would think.
Yeah, as
And you're
natural
and you're
as,
in a
but not
flow state.
necessarily better.
Not better, but you don't have to, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. You're not
Yeah.
in that sort of like, now I have to do this, now I have to do that. Now I'm like, what's the best way to do this? It's all flows, I imagine, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I also think you don't need to necessarily push yourself or push someone to get, better at sailing, to do those 1,000 hours. You're almost more likely to get someone to do those 1,000 hours if each hour feels easy, because each hour is you just enjoying the sailing. Just as when
Mm,
I coach paddle tennis is like, hopefully a lot of these kids will carry on with paddle tennis because they've enjoyed it, and they've perhaps already carried on longer than they would have done if they, hadn't enjoyed it. And I've been trying to maximize that hour to make the most level of improvement possible. Um, like a lot of hard things are actually built by easy steps, and
yeah,
maybe
that is true.
schools should provide the ability for, or the environment where a student could learn something that they want to learn, or like for instance, if it was paddle tennis, um, yeah, have a court where they can actually learn that. Or obviously, yeah, not every school's gonna have a paddle tennis court, but the school should provide lots of different opportunities where kids can choose, "Oh, I like to try that," and then they, keep coming back and they get better at it.
No, I agree. I agree. There is definitely some basis to what, like, I'd say that there is a lot of truth to this, because I found it very difficult to, when I was growing up, like my parents tried to get me to learn how to play instruments and stuff like that, and I didn't want to have anything with it. You know?
Yeah.
I know I say
Uh,
all these things, and I'm the one that hasn't done nothing. You know, I've not put 1,000 hours into anything to be other than
well,
gaming.
thinking you have to put 1,000 hours into it, you're not gonna start anything, are you? Because it's daunting.
No, I didn't know that at the time. I know, but I didn't
Well,
know that
yeah.
at the time, though. I know this
But
now.
but but I guess
But
the attitude that some parents or teachers put on their kids maybe
yeah,
puts people off because it
that
feels
is the
like a
attitude.
task.
And to be honest, I did feel like that whenever I was told, I went to start playing the drums at some point,
Mm.
and and I was told then by the teacher that I need to spend another 6 months just like boringly hitting the drum, like without doing anything else. It's like
Yeah.
practicing on a single drum, just practicing, just playing, like not even like just like a pattern of hitting the drum, nothing else. Like
Mm.
no melody, no nothing. Because that was the prerequisite, according to my teacher,
Yeah,
of
I think,
of getting a
mu
baseline.
yeah, musical instruments in a way perhaps very different than a lot of sports are, in that they have that quite grueling period
Yeah.
at the start with quite a lot of persistence. Like I was learning guitar, and it is quite difficult, and you do need probably a coach, an instructor to coach you, and it takes a long time of just practicing and doing quite boring stuff until you get decent enough to then actually feel like, "Oh, I like playing this. I wanna play another song." So yeah, maybe there is something um, yeah, if you just like completely liberal about it and just freedom is great, then you may not develop so much persistence, which I
Yeah.
think is also can be useful, although can be overdone.
And this is a scenario where for me I kind of wish I was kind of forced to continue whether I hated it or not.
Mm.
But I think in my case I would have been reaping the benefits now of knowing how to play the drums if I was forced
I
to
must say,
continue.
like, it is nice having some skills where I'm effortlessly quite good at them, like sailing and paddle tennis.
Exactly.
uh, which now I have those for the rest of my life as long as I don't get severely injured. I could theoretically be doing them up to age 80 or beyond, and still getting pretty much the same enjoyment out of them. Um, the tr like, do you need to have those skills or have some skills you're pretty good at? No, I guess, like because play is something, but especially, like, when you get older, play is at least just play in play's sake, like you get a Summerhill. We
Mm.
don't have any of that really in society. Like, where can you just go and muck around? Like, you're supposed to be an adult. Like,
No,
if you've got
exactly.
kids, you can't really do that. You can kinda do it sometimes with your kids, but, only for a small age period when they're, like,
Mm.
between age, I don't know, 3 and 9, and then a lot of the time you also have to be a responsible adult. But I guess you can have conversational play, and that's something, but you can't just go around waving hands around and kicking over bins.
No, and you get that in sports, for example. As you say, now you can do that at any age with through your sailing and through your paddle tennis, which is quite useful. And you know, um, that gives you this kind of outlet and a place where you can play. But I don't know. It's I suppose something that different things work for different people. I think again, I always like playing video games. I tend to be good at video games. I get my play there.
Mm,
Maybe that doesn't count. A lot of people will argue, but I say it counts for me. But
yeah.
I kind of going back to the school, the Summerhill school. What about like I don't know if you had the chance to kind of ask or like learn about it in your kind of tour. Like, do they have any ways of dealing with like how do they I don't know, is there need? Maybe you'll argue there's no need for like disciplining the students. Is there any disciplining going on? Or like
Why would you need to discipline a student? Like, give me an example, and I can come up with the
um
response.
a student that is I don't know, breaking the rules. Is there any
Well, then
rules?
if they're breaking the rules and they get fined by the meeting, so there's 2 meetings a week,
Okay.
and
Do tell me
that's
about them
where
then.
the rules are agreed already, and then rules can be added to in a meeting or taken away, and there can be exceptions to rules. Um, but if you break the rule, then you may lose your pocket money. You may be given a strong warning that in future, if you do it again, then you'll lose your pocket money. Um, and so it's like a fine system.
A fine system. And it works.
Seems to.
Interesting. Doesn't seem very I don't know. It doesn't seem very not strict as such, but not I don't know. Not very I don't see any severe consequences there that would stop kids breaking rules.
Well, you don't want to lose your money. So because you can go to town and spend that or whatever. Um, so yeah.
Oh yeah,
Is there other
what
consequences? Oh yeah, you might get your if you might get your screen taken away from you if like, for instance, like some student noticed that this kid's just on just gaming all day. Um,
okay, that would be
and
me. That'd be me.
yeah, which is a problem they didn't have 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's me.
Um,
That's me.
and so one,
Wakes up at lunchtime and starts playing games on his computer, and he doesn't go to
yeah,
class all week.
yeah. So if there is a kid like that, then another kid may bring him up in the meeting and say, "I think Dinos is spending too much time gaming per day." I,
Snitch, snitch.
I yeah, it is a bit of a snitch sort of environment
That'd
in a
be
way.
my reaction to this. Snitches.
Yeah. But then it might be an older kid who brings it up because there's quite a small small community of kids, about I think 50 students. And so it might be like it's all very well to I think that sort of language of "oh snitch, snitch," that's more like something you might call your peers. But if it's someone
Oh, it's an
who
older kid. Okay, okay,
who's
could
like
be
who
an older.
noticed, yeah, like and
Okay,
the
a
older you
senior.
get, more responsibility
Yeah,
you
a
get,
senior.
which
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's really valuable. Something that the community naturally you get more responsibility as you get older. But yeah, so they might say the 16-year-old might tell 12-year-old Dinos or bring him up in a meeting and say, Dinos is spending all his time on screens. I propose that he gets a strong warning to spend less time on screens. And then if you don't spend less time on screens for the next meeting, he might propose that we take we ban screens from this hour to this hour for Dinos. And then if you keep doing it in that time, and violate that rule, then the next meeting they'll bring it up again and say Dinos didn't agree to what we all voted on, and therefore I propose we confiscate his screen for 1 day, and then you take away the screen for 1 day, and then if it's a hierarchy. So and the next time it would be take away the screen for 2 days if it carries on. And I get the feeling it almost never goes to that extreme because
Mm.
people feel like they'll have to respond to pretty much the first strong warning because they know that it's going to escalate otherwise, and it just won't be worth it
I don't
because
know.
there's so much freedom you can do anyway.
I understand that, but I'm sure there must be someone stubborn. There must be a stubborn Dinos in there who doesn't care about their warnings, who doesn't care about what do they want to say or what do they want to do, and he wants to do his own thing. And he'll keep getting worse and worse and worse after every warning and every kind of, you know, restriction and penalty until they become, I don't know, destructive, until they become aggressive. What about them? What
But then
about
you
those
lost
guys?
then if you got your screen confiscated for a day or a week or whatever, and you're off your screen whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but what if I'm then going around disrupting classes,
Well,
being a
then you'll get other consequences. You won't get your pocket money.
okay, I'm not using pocket money either. Okay, what if I steal another kid's pocket money then instead? What if I'm
Well,
like
I guess then you just wouldn't get your next slot of pocket money, and then
that's what I mean, it just
and
feels like,
and
it
so
ignores.
if you want your pocket money, then and you've wanted enough to steal it off someone, then you you're not going to risk stealing it off someone because that's going to lose you it the next time.
I don't know, John. I don't know. It sounds so logical the way you're describing it, but I'm sure.
It seems to work. They suggested that at least, like for instance, with screens and stuff, uh, kids given freedom, they naturally often work out a natural relationship to say screens, rather than something because there's no dictate from above, like with parents or whatever. You have
Yeah.
to work out like what's a healthy relationship with screens.
Mm,
And that's maturity. You get to you see, oh, like my head's starting to hurt because I spent all day gaming. I'm perhaps going to do it less tomorrow.
mm,
And especially it's because there's pretty much ultimate freedom in terms of you can pretty much do whatever you want to do within reason. Then there's loads of other maybe more fun things in games.
okay. Okay. Interesting.
Like, and a lot of
Maybe,
time,
maybe as you
yeah,
say, maybe there is. Maybe as you say, the environment is. I just maybe I'm coming to it from an environment of like a conventional school, which creates these sort of tensions in the first place.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. I think that might be true. And I was obviously I wasn't there for that long, but I was about there for 3 hours, and I got the impression it works pretty well, and it's amazing what just freedom and democracy can do just on its own, just the purest form of freedom and purest form of democracy, unadulterated, that can do wonders. But I also wonder if there is something missing, as it were, or something which could be added in terms of like education as self-cultivation, as like maybe Plato would talk about. Um, but obviously there's a danger in that because you could well be projecting your desire to be better onto students, as many parents do.
Mm.
So, but yeah,
And this is not a it's a mixed gender school, right? This is not
mixed gender, yeah.
mixed gender. And also, does the school have any religion or like a specific sort of like view on like religion?
I don't believe so. The only religious thing I saw is a Chinese New Year poster.
Okay.
So I guess in a way, yeah, it's like a lot of primary schools is they'll Well, no, a lot of primary schools are actually quite religious in the UK, to be
That's
honest.
what I mean. That's why I asked. Because most
But
schools
but
are.
but but the actual religion lessons are often, um, just teaching about different cultures. Um, and so I guess that they might do teach a bit about different cultures, but I don't think they
Mm,
really have religion per se. Um, yeah, I mean, A.S. Neil, who founded the school, had a quote along the lines of, um, oh, I forget what it's saying, but about like trying to make students or pupils or children good makes them evil in a way, but freedom is the cure which makes all children good.
interesting. Hmm. Interesting. Well, I was just
It,
curious to know. Yeah.
like a
Go on.
faith in human goodness, which
Mm,
I guess you could say a lot of the educational system, mainstream, sort of doesn't believe in human goodness and almost comes from a place of fear of if we don't make this child think a certain way, then they're going to be a bad citizen in society. It's quite interesting to see actually that doesn't really happen. Like humans are not like angels, but they're also not like devils generally. Like there might be some odd psychopaths out there, but generally, like you can trust humans to be kind of decent people, or even if they're being selfish, they often don't tend to hurt other people too much. Like, and if generally most people given freedom, if one person complains about your actions to you, they'll just say, "Oh yeah, I'll adjust my freedom to not to minimize my impact on you," because that actually is the easier response rather than having this person get progressively more aggressive to try and get you to change.
mm. I feel like, I don't know, the trust in our societies has reduced with social media. I think we're all a bit more worried and afraid of each other now in real life because of all the things we see in social media, in a way, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, I can completely see why people would think that, but I think that's not a good place to be in, really,
no, it's not, because I
and not a
was,
very accurate place either.
yeah,
Because
what's,
Summerhill, you get pupils from all areas, I guess, all cultures, um, and they all live relatively well together. It doesn't really matter whether you come from a different country or not.
yeah, you mentioned that as well. How does this work with language then?
Well, they
If,
have got a few students who have English as an additional language, and therefore, I guess you need more time with them being coached how to learn English.
okay,
But
yeah,
per se, you don't need to speak English like at all, I guess, to go there because you can experience freedom.
yeah, but like, you experience freedom, but how are you going to connect with other students if you cannot speak English? You know,
Oh, you can connect without language.
I don't know. Like, I
In
think
the
of,
ways that you really need to connect, you can connect without language, but it is an advantage, like, it is helpful, so and people probably want to learn it because it's actually helpful.
yeah, of course they would. Yeah, but yeah, I can imagine it'd be harder for the students in a way if they don't speak English at all. You know, when they came, but obviously you can pick up a language if you're exposed to it every day,
Yeah,
especially at that
maybe, but
age.
it's not like I think a lot of people have this, like, school mentality of, "I need to make friends. I don't want to be the loner." Whereas I didn't get that vibe from Summerhill. It's like, who cares? Like, you're just having fun. You can just play and be in nature, you don't need to have everyone like you or whatever. Yeah, you you will have some people like you usually. So, but it's not coming from a place of you trying to get them to like you.
No, but I get that. But imagine you're away from your family, you're away from any friends you had at home, and you're in a place where you don't know anyone, you don't speak the language, and yes, you have freedom, but it's like, I don't know. I don't. Again, from a personal perspective, I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, the staff seem to be fairly supportive, and then you've also got the older students who will have a responsibility to sort of look after you a little bit if you're new, and especially if you don't speak the language. And And it's funny, like, people given freedom naturally like those sort of responsibilities.
Mm,
But generally, those older kids are not forced into these positions of responsibility or helping the younger kids, but they kind of want to,
yeah.
which
So,
is interesting, like, because it's like a natural morality, as it were, has arisen there,
okay.
not one which has been enforced secondhand by other people and out of fear.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm I'm not fully sold. I'm not fully sold, I have to say.
Not sure I was either, but I was impressed.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. On the surface, you know.
No, I
I
think pretty deep as well. Not to say there's no problems. I think, it's a pretty good system, but I think it's freedom is the first step. I don't
On the
think it's,
surface, yeah.
everything.
I understand the freedom, yes, but I think especially for children, freedom is shouldn't be everything. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. I
I
think
think there's more for
I become
education to do than just freedom.
sorry,
I think there's more for education to do. Um, Obviously,
meaning
there's dangers in trying to cultivate children, but the adults do know more in a way, although they can misguide children. And so whether it's teaching students a skill
mm,
um, or sort of maybe like imagine, yeah, a kid just playing all day at a school like Summerhill. They may have no idea there's some of like quantum physics or the stars, as in yeah, like the different planets and whatever. They might think it's pretty to look up at the sky, and that's a nice thing, but there's so much wonder and stuff there, which a great teacher can cultivate. So, and that wonder will be powered by the child when it knows that there is something in that direction to explore. But until a great teacher points them in that direction or gives them the skills to be able to go in that direction themselves and the support, then they won't necessarily do that. And I think a good teacher is good at opening up those possibilities and helping students pursue them using the power of the student's own curiosity.
yeah, fair enough. I agree on that. I agree on that note. And good teachers can impart knowledge without it feeling like it's a chore or forced or whatnot. But I feel like you also need children to be able to operate under strict, structured, and you know hard environment, because that environment will be more reflective of the real world where these children will live in as adults.
To some extent, yes, but I think there's also like you don't want to end their childhood prematurely.
Yes, that's
Like you
also
want to
true.
prepare them for childhood, but you don't want to impose your negative view of adulthood onto their childhood as young as you can get that. So I don't think that's necessarily positive to do.
No, I know, I agree. It's just schools these days act that if a child doesn't go to school for one day, they're gonna not be able to count to 10 or something. It's like,
Mm,
what is this? It's crazy. We're not affording the children um the privileges that people that go to work have.
yeah.
It's like crazy. So, and I feel like we're stealing the children's like childhood and innocence away from them with the way schools operate. But at the same time, I do feel like children have to experience this sort of like pressure, quote unquote, of like the traditional school in essence, because it'll be much more reflective of a stressful job that they'll have in the future.
Well, you say, "Oh, the stressful job I'll have in the future," but will they necessarily have a stressful job in the future? Maybe people who are raised badly are more likely to get a stressful job in the future. But like this AS Neil chap who founded the school, he was perfectly fine with his students becoming a bricklayer or whatever. I'm not saying that's never stressful, but in a way, maybe it's less stressful than a lot of these white collar jobs. And then if you force a kid to be a certain way during education, and then they end up not actually going for one of these high pressure jobs, then what was the point of all those wasted years? And was it, even if you're getting paid more, is it worth more? And actually, these days, in a world of AI and stuff, and even now, let alone in 10 years, it's not the white collar jobs, but the electricians, the plumbers, and the bricklayers who are getting paid way more than they used to. They're not the lower class jobs anymore. They're at least middle class, because there's less of them these days. We need builders, we need plumbers. Think how much you pay a plumber when they come round. It's I don't think it's worth what they're actually offering, and it's almost certainly way more than it was years ago. And yes, maybe that job can be kind of stressful sometimes, but I feel like it's less stressful because it's more concrete. Excuse the pun.
I like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily. I'm not putting it against this. I'm not trying to say one job is more stressful than another, but it still remains that a job will have demands and will have, timelines and deadlines and whatnot. And you'll have a customer. You're doing the job for someone, even if you're a bricklayer or a plumber or someone. The customer wants it done by next week. You might have to work hard. You probably have to work hard. You might have to work to a time limit. You might have to do all this sort of thing. All that freedom, I'm not saying teaching children all these kind of things.
Well, a lot of them do go on to GCSEs, and therefore, if you're doing GCSEs, then you start learning those skills then, if you haven't learned them before.
But the question is
That's what
then, are you
exam.
trying to play catch up then at the time where you're ready, your focus should be learning? Are you going to be trying to also learn how to operate under this sort of environment while also trying to learn a bunch of information to pass your tests? That's the question. Are you being
Well, generally,
disadvantaged?
the students come into Summerhill at the latest at age 11, 12, and therefore that's quite a few years before their GCSEs, and so they've adjusted to the environment of living in the free environment, and then they may choose that they want to go and become an optician, and therefore they need these GCSEs, and therefore I'm going to work hard for them. And yes, I might need to catch up because I've been playing a lot the last few years,
That's what I mean.
but because I've got a goal, and I've got people who will be there to support me, then I can probably get a GCSE
I
in
get that,
those subjects. Maybe not amazing, but
that's what I mean. I
sometimes.
feel like this could disadvantage some students. That's what I think.
Well, maybe, but then you are by going for those exams, even if you've lost out on some educational years, by going for those exams, you do train those ideals you were talking about of like persistence, and
Yeah, you are, but I'm
working to
just saying.
deadlines and stuff.
But I'm just saying you might not be able to get the grades you need in those exams if you've been so disadvantaged. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but possibly.
I'm not saying. I'm
I
just saying.
think definitely not always the case. But
No,
yeah,
no, of
if you have
course.
been playing for like 5 years solid, then
That's what I would be afraid.
I imagine
Yeah.
it would have some toll. Maybe not as much as we think. I think people, when they put their mind to it, can catch up. But yes, to catch up enough to get A star, or they're not A star GCSEs anymore. They're 1 to 10 or whatever, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know
But
the
yeah, to get
scales.
like a
Yeah.
top grade, you might not, or a lot of people might not be able to catch up to that. But then
But as you
you've
say, maybe there is more benefits. Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe.
you've learned those skills of persistence and whatever, and time management in getting, and you'll get some grade out of it, and then you see what that grade will allow you to do. You
Fair enough.
reassess,
Fair enough. I
and
think
you may find something slightly worse or even better than your original goal.
I do think a more nuanced perspective in education is definitely not a bad thing. You know.
Yeah,
And
especially in a world where we don't need to crank out more robots,
exactly.
like because we got enough. robots to do robotic jobs.
Yeah, and even more robots in the future. So maybe we can park it there for now.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments. Are you in
Would
favor
you,
of
yeah, would you send your children to Summerhill?
to Summerhill or not? Let us know.
Yeah.
And
All
we'll
right.
be back
See
next
you there.
time.